Greetings, guys. How we doing today? This is Wirecat, and today we're going to dive into Cakewalk by Bandlab. It is a free DAW. That's right, free 99. And because it's been around for so long, probably about, I think, longer than 20 years, honestly, it is very seasoned and accomplished. It offers just about everything you need or want when it comes to recording music or using soft synths. And it's really fun. So we're going to dive into it, and we're just going to start with the basics today. So if you don't have a copy of this, go to bandlab.com. Really all you got to do is register, download it, install it. I am using a Focusrite Scarlett, just a 2-line interface. Get whatever interface you want. You don't really need a video card, just a computer with a lot of RAM and some power to it. And you can start your own. I mean, the synth even the DAW even has its own synthesizers and things like that. So you are very quickly on your way. So let's do this. Let's start a new project. And we're just going to, this is just basic Cakewalk track. So there you go. That is the interface. And let's just show you around. This is an audio track. There's an audio symbol. If I right click on this, you can go load icon and choose if you're doing a guitar. Various guitars. We can put an electric guitar there. And there's your electric guitar. This is a MIDI track. So this is running MIDI. And we're not going to go this basic, but audio and MIDI are two different things. MIDI is used to record VSTs and things like that, which is later on bounced into audio, where an audio track can be armed on the spot, and you record live signals like vocals, guitars, drums, etc. In this case today, we're going to be using VSTs and mostly sticking to MIDI type things. So when we record, basically, you're looking at 3 different phases. You could divide it into 4 or 5, but for myself, I think of it as basically 3 different stages. The first stage is you're fleshing out the song, recording the song, editing the song. Next stage would be mixing. Excuse me, let's back up. You're editing the song, recording the song. The second stage is you render your MIDI tracks to audio. And then you're going to take that audio and you're going to begin the mixing stage. At this point, you're going to level everything, make sure you have the right volume levels, EQ, because we don't bother to do that to MIDI. You don't want to mess too much with, MIDI just needs to sound good. But once you bounce it to audio, you're going to start to fine tune things. So you separate those 2 stages. Finish your MIDI, bounce things off. I do it one at a time. You want to keep things very organized and labeled. You start to bounce those finished tracks off, freezing the other tracks to free up your RAM space and your performance on your computer. And you just do this slow process. As you finish MIDI tracks, you start to bounce off these audio tracks. Once you have all your audio tracks ready, then you start to mix, tweak them, EQ, all that good stuff, until you finally are happy with that mix and you bounce it down. And if you have T-Rax or something like that, you could, or even on, there's, like I was saying, you can master on Sonar. There's plenty of plugins and processors to get you well on your way to mastering your own songs. And as a user of over 15 years, it sounds, you're going to be stoked. It's great, especially using soft synths, because they've done a lot of the engineering for you. So with a little bit of hard work and some strategic mixing skills, efforts, you can have a pretty good sounding song of your own. play it in your car on their way to work. So let's get started here, guys. The first thing I basically do is I just hold Control and I get rid of these 2 tracks. Right click, delete 2 tracks. We're going to, let's see, start by going over here. This is where we keep the plugins, Cakewalk plugins. This is Melodyne, which is, we'll get into later. Tunes up things. But what we're going to do is, oh, we're looking at audio. Those were audio effects, excuse me. So we're going to go to instruments, all our instrument plugins, and we're going to go to IK Media, and in this case, we're going to bring up an instance of Sample Tank 3. And you can double click on that, or you can drag and drop it over here, which we'll just drag and drop it. The reason I picked Sample Tank 3 is because it is what they call a multi-timbral instrument, meaning that this one instance of Sample Tank 3, if you wanted to, you could just make your whole song with just that, because it can give you 16 different tracks of instruments. So let's pull up Sample Tank 3, and as you go along, see this little bar here? It's a good idea to color code your tracks. So what we're going to do is just left click on that bar. You have all these colors you can choose from. Myself, I'll show you what I do. I tend to color my tracks the same color as the plugin. So Sample Tank 3 is red. This doesn't always work, but I just put red, and I always can recognize that as Sample Tank. And I'll do that to the master folder there for Sample Tank. So here what you have is basically the mother folder here, and then you have a MIDI track that is connected to Sample Tank 3 right here. These are your 16. Where did my mouse go? Well, I think my power on my mouse has run dry. Give me a second here, folks. But if you look at that 1 through 16, that center column there, those all represent your parts. Those all separate sounds. And the 1 through 16 are the 1 through 16 MIDI numbers that you'll assign them to. That we're going to do right now once I plug in this mouse. Excuse the noise here. I'm using the MX Master by Logitech. I love this mouse. Great mouse. And if you don't mind spending $100 on a mouse, I don't even think they're that much now. I think they're like $79 now because they've been around. So let's get going in Sample Tank here. Here we have track 1. And let's find just a piano or whatever. Here's a nice little piano. And we'll just load that piano here. That is a loading screen. And the reason it's taking a long time is because this is not a synthesizer. It's actually loading sample files, audio pictures, performance of that instrument. Now that we've loaded the file on track 1, if you have a keyboard in front of you, you're going to want to make sure that your keyboard is on track 1 also, so it'll respond to that piano. Go ahead and hit a key and you'll notice that nothing's happening. That's because this track hasn't been armed to play. So there you go. And now this track is ready to go. This button right there turns orange. Input on. Now we have a nice little piano going on there. Let's take a look at the mixer. And I'm getting a lot of monitoring latency. And there's your piano. And you can go ahead and play around on your piano a little bit. Not the loudest piano. See what we can do about that. Turn our levels up. All right. So we have a piano. We'll go back to play. Now we're going to, because we can't just have a piano for our song, we're going to add a bass, because you got to have a bass to go with the drums. So this is what we're going to do with, this is the multi-timbral instrument. We're going to add another MIDI track right here. Insert MIDI. And to do that, we're just going to go in this column right here, right click, and we're going to insert MIDI track. Now notice when this new MIDI track came up, this turned black and white. Now if I go here, it's red. But this one's still black and white. This is our master out. This is the last thing that goes before it hits the damn speakers. So this volume really just, you can just leave it there. In my case, you might see me messing with it so I can make my voice over the music so I can talk to y'all. But you're gonna just want to keep it right there. Otherwise you're gonna start clipping. Clipping is when you see this little thing peak red, not a good thing. So now that we can hear the piano, we have track 2. I'm going to color this one red too, because this is all going to be part of our sample tank 3 instance. And we can go ahead and label this track bass. And we can go ahead and label that track bass. And what we're going to want to do is connect this MIDI and let it know that we're going to be playing sample tank. So we're going to pull it down here, right here, pull down. There it is, sample tank 3. Now, if we are going to, say we're using some other multi-timbral instrument, say we're using Contact 6 perhaps, same thing. If I'm running the female vocal voices in one instance in Contact, and then I want to run Alicia Keys, I'm going to make the same. You're going to have Contact 6 as your master folder. Your first will be the horn sections that you pulled up. And then you want to use Alicia Keys too, right? So you're going to make a new MIDI track. This would be labeled Alicia Keys Piano. You're going to bring this down. And instead of saying Tambourine 3.1, it would say Contact 6. Click on that. And now you're good to go. All you got to do is arm this, switch your keyboard to channel 2, and I have absolutely no bass sound. Isn't that just fine? And that's because I didn't load a bass. Look at that. Psych. So let's load a bass. I was really scaring myself there. What the hell is going on here? Got a nice little bass loaded up, and it just took my piano place. So let's get rid of that. I just put it in the 2 slot. So see how it's highlighted? That's the slot it's going to go in. So let's go right the hell back up here, or back down here to piano. Load my piano back up in slot 1. And once this is loaded, we can go down to slot 2, and we'll go back down and find that bass, or find that bass there. Nice little fretless Jocko. And now the latency is just ridiculous. And we'll turn up our bass. And I don't think I'm feeling the Jocko Pastoria, the fretless stuff. So let's go just a jazz fingered bass. That's fun. Alrighty. So now we have a bass and a piano. And still just working with one instance of this multi-timbral instrument. Don't think of it as sample tank necessarily. Think of it as whatever multi-instrumental VST you're using. Let's go find some drums. The reason I want to bring up drums is because you're going to treat the drums differently. It's probably the only thing you're going to treat drastically differently from any other instrument, because you're going to be doing one of 2 things, one of 3 things. You drag and dropping in cooked MIDI files that are already wonderfully performed by expert drummers, which is what I highly recommend. You can tap in your own drums, which you do using your keyboard, which I'm not going to bother trying right now because of the latency involved. It would be nearly impossible to drum on this keyboard. Or what we have here is loops, in which you're using drum loops provided by, well, in this case, Sample Tank. And these are pretty fucking cool, because if we go down here, we have loops provided by legendary people, one of which is with Neil Peart. And let's see what Peart has to say today. Here we have the Neil Peart kit. So the kit is what it says. This is Neil Peart's kit, and is divided across the keyboard. So if you wanted to use that method too, in which you basically roll your own beats to smoke, you can do that. So Neil Peart kicks, and you can see that the kicks have been put on C. I just put Neil Peart kick is now where my bass was, so we'll fix that anyways. It looks like they put those kicks on C1, and there it is. And of course, to handle my own. And my keyboard's not picking that up for some reason. Oh, well, that's why. Once again, kind of failing here. So there's the kick. They give you two different kicks to deal with. We can go to the snares. And you got snares down on C. They give you a nice little roll there. Mind you, that's Neil Peart hitting the snare. There's a little side stick action. And another side stick. See where I'm going here? Here you have a whole kit instead of individual. So if you wanted to multi-track those, put everything on kicks on a separate track, all that, you could do that. They give you kick snares all separated. I'm just going to load the kit as a whole. So now we have the whole drum kit across all our keys. And what I want to do is give us some volume. All right. So now we got Neil Peart's kit. And we can add effects to that. You can see the effects I already have lined up on that. Change whatever you want in there. So we'll just back out of that. So Neil's kit is pretty darn cool. There it is. Yeah, it's really hard to drum with a delay like that. So let's leave Neil Peart's kit where it's at. I'm digressing here greatly. Gonna go back, we're gonna go to 3 now. And we're just gonna change this to drums. And we're going to use, instead of the kit, we're gonna use Neil Peart grooves. And And you can see that because of copyright problems, they can't name this groove Tom Sawyer, so they name it Tommy Groove. What is really cool about this is you have the actual BPMs of the Rush song. So these are the actual beats per minute. If you are a Rush aficionado like I am, you can decipher some of the codes here. Grace Groove, like Grace Under Pressure, Spirit Beats, Spirit of Radio. So let's start with Spirit of Radio. And you can see it's 135 beats per measure. So let's go ahead and change the tempo in Sonar to 135 per measure. This is the tempo right there. Double click and 135. Now I can do this because we're working with MIDI. MIDI is like a player piano. You can manipulate it, speed it up, slow it down, and it really doesn't matter as long as it all fits nice. If this were audio, or once I bounce my first track to audio, I'm at that point basically committed to sticking with that tempo. So 135 it is. And before we get started here, I want to throw our bass track back in here. What you see popping up there is our little metronome track. You'll see those in our console view. When we bring up our console, same tracks right there. By the way, console view is D. If you just hit D, boom, console view. You can start tracking all those. I'm digressing again. Let's pull this down. And we're going to enter one more MIDI track here. And we're going to just color that bad boy red real quick like the other ones. And we're going to label this bass. And bring it down, and we are looking for a sample tank. And this is number 3, which we are on right now. We're going to go back and leave that at drums. See what we did here? I got them on both, so let's just get rid of 2, and we'll take this back to bass. And on 2, we will go up here to, way up here to bass, and get ourselves a nice bass. Not a synth bass though, so I kind of want a fingered, compressed pop jazz bass. So we'll turn this on real quick. Still on. All right. Change my octaves here. Nice. And let's have some fun. So we're going to get rid of this for now. We're just going to... What we're going to... Actually, let's bring this back. Actually, what we have here, let's go down to 3. MIDI channel on 3. Now, how you're going to treat drum loops within an instrument like this is... What we have here is, that's our bass. So if we go here, see all these keys have little arrows on them? Each one of these is a beat. Neil Peart. And all these beats are from the song Spirit of Radio. You can see we're clipping there. That's what clipping looks like. but I'm struggling to hear, so. And that's I'm gonna have a great time keeping up with that with latency. Excuse me. Oh yeah. That could only be one person. So I like that. And so let's take a look at that. That is a B. And that B is right. I need to go to, 3. Turn on drums. So that first. So that's a fill. Let's find a main beat. Hard to do with first. Okay, here we go. So that's an A. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to arm this track to record. I like to lay my drums first. I'm always laying drum tracks first. It's a good way to start a song. And it doesn't really matter where we start. This is the beat we want to start with. So we're going to hit record, hit R. Look at that. All right, that's it. We're done. See you tomorrow. No, just kidding. See this line? That is the performance right there. So let's just push this aside. We're going to bring your mouse over this and double click. And what that just did was created or brought up the boom piano roll or a MIDI editor. This line is this line. So let's get rid of this for a second so we can see. Let's just bring us down. So you're going to want to use this a lot. Just like if you're editing video or something, this lets you zoom in on something. See if you have to do something precise. And if you're using a big project, sometimes you want to just get a big view of everything. So first we're going to take this and we're going to move it to 1. Or maybe not. You might want to start on 2. Could be a very wise idea. Let's look up here real quick. See that? This is our lock to grid. Make sure that's on. Because when you have this on, this is your timing. All these little grids, this represents time in your song. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is all time. 10 seconds in, 12 seconds in, 14 seconds in. Having this on will lock your notes to a place and time automatically. It'll automatically just lock it there. So I keep mine on about 16ths, and now it's going to lock to 16ths. See how it's moving in increments of 16ths? So if I want to put it right on 2, you can see it's right on 2, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. I don't really put anything on 1, and that's because you want to have a count in. Might seem like a good idea to put something on 1, but you don't want to do it. You want to have a count in. 1, 2, 3. All right, that's the first groove. Take this, you can pull it out as long as you want, and that's how long that beat's gonna go. So let's just pull it out to 6 here, and we'll take a listen to that. All right, let's back this up because you can see the fill. Kind of the beat ends here and then repeats itself. So moving up along, you can see the next note would be right here. I'm not sure if they put this in chronological order or time order, but let's put this one right here and we can see what we got. Oh, that's interesting. That is right on, huh? not too seamless there, was it? First time ever actually used it in this manner here. That's a bit of a pisser, because this should play seamlessly right into the next one here. There we go. Maybe it's just where I stopped it. Let's roll 2. No. That's really weird. I'm gonna try that. It might be the voice meter driver. I doubt that. Let's try a different beat height. Might be where I stopped it too. So let's start with this one here. We're going to bring this down to 2. And then we'll try that and see how that works. Alrighty. Do-do. Huh. That's interesting, kids. I'm going to preface this with I rarely use loops for drums, so how embarrassing. It may be the driver, why those aren't lining up. You can hear it sounds badass, and if I just play keys. Yeah, it even stops there. See that stall? It ought to just be seamless. So let's do this. Here's a nice little beat. We're just going to start that at 1. And for learning purposes, let's just go ahead and drag this little beat out, and we won't put anything else to complicate it, because you can see normally you would just line these up and you find your fills and what you need within these keys, and you just make your song, draw it out from there as you need it. If you need a fill, you put it there. We'll just pull this out a little ways. And now we have, oh, look at that. We have all this room here. Let's bring this in. Got a good 12 seconds. And of course we can move it from here too. So if I want to line it right up at 2, there you go. And there's the drum performance. Now is our bass. I might need to use that mixer. All right. And yeah, I'm never going to be able to, with this latency, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So I need to figure out a way to avoid all this monitoring latency. But There's another way around this, and that is we can arm the bass track. Hit record. Let's take a look at this track. See where we ended up. And it's not too bad, actually. So we could easily, since we have grid snap, you can just bring these forward. Once you learn the numbers, you can really move stuff around. 480 looks good. This needs to go to 480. And I'm going to show you something really quick for fixing stuff. 720. Put that at the 1. Bring this back to 240. And you can basically fix that whole line right there. So these are this is your MIDI performance, and you can, these are all your notes, just like the drums. So you could really what a lot of people do is just insert notes one by one. And when you have a latency like this, you have to resort to that. Yeah, the latency is just horrible, so. You'll have a drum track, and I'll tell you what we can do is we'll just slow this down to 100. So it's not moving so drastically fast, and we'll see if we can put some kind of bass to it. Let's see what we can do. So there's a ridiculous bass track using all white keys, just kind of a D thing. All right, so there's a little bass track with a lot of cymbals and stuff in there. Go back to channel 1 here. And we still have our piano waiting for us. And so what are we going to do with it? I think we should probably play it. So let's just do some kind of weird Rush type piano riff. And I have no idea where the timing was. It was just all over the place. All right, so there you have a very simple 3-track recording. Using one plugin. Now, if we wanted to, we could just put in another MIDI track. We don't, you know, we're going to color it red because we got time to do that kind of stuff. Okay, and bring it down once again, right here, sample tag. We're going to go back to the play page. Number 4, using contact, it would be instrument number 4. So number 4, come back up here, And what are we looking for? Some brass, some jazz pop brass ensemble. Got some saxophone, jazz, and some trombones. That might be great for a Rush song. And that'd be track 4. And let's go ahead and arm track 4 here. Yeah, I can see it. How do you like that, Neil? Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. You gotta do something about this latency. And now we have a really kind of cheesy sounding horn. And I will confess, the brass and horn section of Sample Tank is not the best. It does a lot of things good, but that is not one of them. It has really decent pianos, great drums. The basses are kind of... I use Moto bass. But you know, it is what it is. It's a what do you call that? Swiss Army knife. It's a jack of all trades, a master of none. So here, running out of time here tonight, we have a basic 4-track MIDI recording using multi-timbral resources within Sonar. And was that hard? No, it was really easy. So let's wrap this up by saving the project if we were to. You just go right here, you just save as, and pick a name, and it's going to stick all your projects in Cakewalk projects. And it'll make a little folder for it. And we're going to leave it at normal for now. Once I start putting audio tracks into things, I'll bundle it. And that means it's taking everything. It's taking all your audio, everything, and putting it in one package called Cakewalk. And with that bundle, just with this bundle, you can take that and back it up on a hard drive. And that is the file you're going to back it up. That's your song, the Cakewalk bundle. That's what you don't want to be losing. So there's an old rule. Once you get into doing your project and it's, you don't want to mess up, bundle everything. There's an old saying, bundle it every time. Don't be lazy, just bundle it. And that way, there's a very slim chance you're going to lose anything. So, let's close this out. And we're not going to save this in this case. What do we got here? Dun-dun-dun. What did I see? The existing projects. Let's have a little bit of fun before I let y'all go. What is that? I'll play that song sometime. The song I made. Very, very fun. And this right here, using, I'm a big fan of real guitar. And I just did a simple copy of The Police, Every Breath You Take, because it's such a cool guitar riff. Hope you guys learned something from a little explanation tonight. Very, very beginner, very basic, but sometimes we take for granted, people that have done this a while, that there are people out there that are just hearing about the word MIDI tonight. I mean, they've literally never heard the word MIDI. What is MIDI? So you got to kind of go back and keep it slow for those folks, because they're going to be the great ones. In a couple of years, they're going to be doing it. And this is really just taking... Well, there we go. You can see this is just a simple. And look at, now you see what we were doing. Now you can start to pick things out. Look at, wow, those are MIDI tracks, Wirecat. I recognize those. Look at that. I can double click on that and see my MIDI. There's all my drum patterns. What do you think this is? Those are hi-hats. So the darker the color, the less the velocity. The brighter the color, the more of the velocity. Here's your velocities right here. There's your kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. You start to be able to read these things as you get used to it. Here we have a trillion bass. Ding, 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 ding. You can see a nice little bass line there. And real Strat guitar. A clean. Anyways, I did this a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to loop it because we don't have a lot of time. I just wanted to play this. I'm using Amplitude, real Strat, trillion bass. You could use any bass. And addictive drums. And that's what we got. Yeah. Pretty authentic. Pretty authentic. Anyways, that's just a little sample of the fun you can have. If you want to copy one of your favorite bands, maybe you like a song, you can kind of do it your own way. And just have a lot of fun with it. And remember, this is all free. All free. And as you start to collect instruments and get better, let me tell you, you start diving into this, there comes that day when you just kind of realize, I understand this program and I can do what I want. And that's amazing freedom. Gives you a lot of musical freedom. And you'll just end up spending hours in front of your computer recording instead of picking up girls and going out working and making money and doing important things in life. Going to school. Look at that. I got my finger on the stop button, motherfuckers. This is over now. See you later, guys.